Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Dale's Rails. Well, I found myself working on the layout this week, and I also had an engine show up at the door, so I'll share those with you. In fact, I think we'll use the engine to check out the section of track I took out and put back in. So grab a seat and join me where I get back on track on working on the railroad. Well, I decided I'm going to ballast in the rest of the track here, and I decided to go ahead and pull up this curve section. If you recall previous video, I redid these turnouts and shifted this track work over a little bit to make clearance here for the scaled GG1 locomotive to clear this corner. And you know, I'm only moving this over half an inch. It seems like a lot of work to go through probably for that, but you know, the more I got to looking at it, the more it just wasn't going to be right. So I wanted to shift everything over to really match the track bed to the track itself. And you can see here that I initially put down, this is that plumber's pipe wrap, and it was stuck to the table. So one of the things here, it's really important, you know, especially since this is Homosoap, that you want to paint this. Painting this makes all the difference in the world if you ever hope or plan to pull up your track bed ever again. Otherwise, it's going to come out in pieces. And so this came up reasonably well. I mean, you're not going to be able to get, you know, the original adhesive that's underneath there off. But I shifted it over. This was done initially around that outer edge to elevate that a little bit. You know, this is my super elevated curve section here. So one of the reasons probably why I can travel through these curves high speed. So it makes a big difference on, you know, high speed running. I use the Aleene's tacky glue. I find it's very good glue for adhering this track road bed. Does a really good job of holding that down, and it's pretty easy to pull back up. So I've had really good results with this. So I like using it to, seems like I've used this from the very first section of roadbed that I put down, and it track roadbed, and it just was so good. I've been using it ever since, just because I've had good results. So it's a good product to use, and it'll stay fairly tacky. So you can do kind of a pretty good sized section, at least this section here that I'm doing. You know, I probably wouldn't recommend doing typically more than 3 foot at a time. Usually you're going to have all the cut prep work done beforehand, so that's a big factor on when you're laying your road bed to make it a little bit easier. And it glues it is pliable enough that you can position this pretty good. You got time to, you know, to shift it around a little bit, get it in position like you want. What I got here is another item from Trains. It's only the third engine type like this that I have in my collection. In fact, you know, this is not an engine that I was really that excited about initially, but you know, now that this one came available, and this came up at such a good price, I could not pass it up. This is a model of a GP-9. It is a New York Central, a GP-9. It was such a good deal, I just couldn't pass it up. This engine is equipped with TMCC and rail sound, so the plan, was to swap shells. I only have, this will make only the second GP-9 in my collection that's motorized. I do have another one that's a dummy. So there that is. It's a pretty sharp looking model. But I don't think the shells are going to swap out, so I may have to go to another plan B, I guess. So we'll stick this on the lat. We'll get her running here. Well, I thought it'd be fun to do a little side-by-side run comparison of these GP-9s I have here in my fleet. The New York Central and the Milwaukee Road both have TMCC and rail sounds, but the rail sound systems are not the same. I was a little bit surprised about that, just because these seem very similar. And I'm sure they must have been produced at different times. And I did go ahead and service the New York Central and put a 9-volt battery in. So it's ready to run now. I think that I'd like it to run on the outer loop here. So I'm going to do an engine swap out here. Try to do one here and see how it goes. Well, here's the section I tore out and put back in. As you can tell by the run session, the engines ran through there just fine, so I think everything turned out really well on that. And I even got my ties in ready to go for ballasting. I got this section here painted out, ready to go. I got to put my ties in. You know, I do cut and make my own ties just out of old cedar fence boards. I just like the, you know, the natural weathered raised grain it created on it. And for me, constructing the layout is what I want to try to do. As much scratch building as on the cheap as I can, just because the cost of the engines, rolling stock such as they are, you know, you've got money wrapped up in that. You know, I don't really want to spend all my money on just constructing the layout. So I try to do this as cheaply as I can. And then next week, you know, I'll be filming this section here where I'm ballasting this out and show you guys how I ballast my track. That's all I have for this week. So until next time, you've been watching Dale's Rails. Thanks for watching.